It can be overwhelming when you're thinking about doing influencer marketing for your game. How much should I pay influencers? Should I work with micro or macro influencers, Twitch streamers, or YouTubers? How much should I budget for influencer marketing in my overall marketing strategy? What about all of the things that are changing on all of the platforms? It's a lot to think about. Luckily, I spoke with an expert in influencer marketing. Sandy Smith, besides being the host of Behind the Game podcast, is the lead of game marketing at Yoda One, and she knows a lot about influencer marketing. We had a really interesting, very insightful conversation. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So here's my conversation with Sandy Smith. What do you get with influencer marketing that you don't get with other kinds of marketing, paid or organic? What is the unique thing that you get with that?
You can with UA, you can really easily target, different geos, but I think you can even do that further within influencer marketing. So if you really wanted to, expand in Japan, you can specifically work with Japanese influencers, which we are actually doing right now. And I will say, working with Japanese influencers is a lot different than working with global influencers because they are very precise on what they want from you and what they need to say. And so, for example, when working with Idol Slayer, they are asking like, how many times do I have to upgrade to be able to see the Wasp and the Stone Giants and all this stuff? And I'm like, I'm gonna have to Google all this information because it's been so long since I started the game, I don't remember. So
Precision on both sides, precision on what they want from you, and precision on what they want to know about what they should do.
right, yeah. So they basically just don't want to get it wrong because you're paying them. So I appreciate that. But typically, honestly, when we work with influencers specifically for Idol Slayer, it's a good game. So we give the game to these influencers and we're like, play how you want. Be honest, like do what you want during like cues, however you want to do it. Like be honest, like with your community. We find that to be really like work really well with this game. But no, not really how the Japanese influencers really want to work. They want like a specific script. They want to know what they have to do, what places they have to get to, and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think it makes a difference? Because it seems like one of the things you're saying is there's an aspect of influencer marketing that has a kind of built-in authenticity that is what helps it work. Authenticity and connection with the audience and enjoying the game, not telling them we need this and this, just have fun, as a way to have them actually enjoy it and connect with their audience. So is that important, do you think, in general? Or does influencer marketing come in all shapes and sizes in terms of effectiveness?
It depends on the game and it depends on your budget because we've seen, different games. I want to say Shadow Kingdom. I don't remember if that's in a game, but they basically worked with every influencer under the sun, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't really care what the ad looked like. They just wanted as many people as possible to see it. So that was kind of their marketing strategy. Versus with Idol Slayer, we have seen a direct correlation with influencers who are actually enjoying the game have a much higher return. So if we give them the game and we say, hey, enjoy it like you want to, we see better results. Also, we've done some ad campaigns within YouTube versus Q games within Twitch. And we've found better results with the Q games within Twitch because it seems less ad-like. And so if it seems more natural with that specific game, we tend to have better results.
That's interesting. Well, I'm curious about then the evaluating cost effectiveness, right? Because I think it's relatively easy to evaluate cost effectiveness for UA campaigns, but when it comes to influencer marketing, a lot of it I know depends on the organic uplift, and it's hard to track a lot of it. But adding to that complexity would be, for example, doing that with different influencers in different countries and all of the different social dynamics that might be different in different countries. How do you evaluate cost effectiveness?
There's a couple ways we can look at it. So one, we do give them a trackable link. So, they put it in their bio. If it's Twitch, they put it in their chat. It's a chat bot. So we see some, or like direct downloads from that. And then we can take, the CPI and all that good stuff. But it's also, if let's say we're working with a Japanese influencer and we see a big spike in Japan on the day of posting, like that's pretty obvious that came from this influencer marketing. So, we take that, if here's the baseline of organic, downloads, and then we see the spike and we basically take the spike and then, calculate CPI through that.
So you have to make sure you account for all other possible variables to make sure that
Yes.
nothing else happened in Japan, and then
Right.
then you would just look at the organic, even if it didn't come from the link, you would attribute that to that campaign.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we double check, make sure we didn't have a feature or anything like that. But feature spikes in organics look a lot different than influencer spikes. Typically, an influencer spike, depending on the type of content, it's usually like a boop and then like kind of like a little, I don't know,
It
like
bounces a little
heartbeat,
bit.
a check mark. Yeah.
A
But
basketball without much air in it.
Yeah, it's like a big spike and then like little
Yeah.
spikes. Feature is more of kind of like mountains and then an immediate drop off. So just by kind of comparing the different way the spikes look within the organic tracking, you can kind of tell what is and what is like not it attributed from.
Is that game by game, or is that pretty universal across the board, the way that the spikes look?
That's pretty universal. Granted, of course, it depends on the type of feature you're getting, and how big it is, what countries it is, blah, 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 blah. But for the most part, yeah, they all kind of look similar depending on what kind of, campaign you're running.
Okay. Next question. What are some of the things that you've seen change? We had a conversation kind of a long time ago about social media marketing in general. Whether since then or just in general, what are some of the things that you've seen change, and maybe where do you see things going in influencer marketing?
It's getting more expensive for sure. I think maybe last time we talked, like just me and you, we were talking about how influencer marketing is answer to UA being more problematic.
That was one of the key points I think we hit on, yeah.
Yeah, and now I believe influencer marketing is just getting more expensive because maybe they listened to that talk and they were like,
Yeah, it
oh,
was
we
all
need to
that.
raise our prices. Yeah.
Dang.
I don't know. Yeah, I spilled the beans. My bad.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to find an influencer that has not signed with an agency, like, don't let them go. That's fantastic. But most influencers, even like smaller micro influencers, are signed with agencies these days, and that just like racks up the price. I mean, their job is to negotiate for these influencers, and so that's what they do, and typically they don't really like to go below a certain price, even though their average number of views nowadays is a lot lower than what they're saying their average views is, because 3 years ago they had a video pop off that got millions of views, and that like kind of alters the average. And so on paper, it looks a lot higher than recent views. And
it can make a channel look nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, if you look at the past 10 videos, they're getting like, maybe 100,000, probably less. And you're like, that's not worth what I'm going to pay for the amount of views I know I'm going to get.
Right. Just as a side point,
Yeah.
is the agency thing, do you feel like they're actually representing creators, or is it more increasing the price because they're taking a bigger share?
In some cases, I think there's some really good agencies out there and they take care of their influencers. And I'm not saying anything bad about the agencies. I think it's a talent agency. I think
it is
people
what it
need
is,
to
yeah.
be represented in that kind of way. But yeah, I don't need to pay, $15,000 for, 200,000 views. That's ridiculous. And that's just not going to happen. So in that case, yes, that is them increasing the price, but that also comes from that specific influencers having a large amount of subscribers, even though that doesn't necessarily reflect the amount of views he's currently getting.
Well, then one of the things you see, as we talked about last time, when something gets expensive and maybe approaches too expensive sometimes, then what happens is usually a new thing kind of pops out as an answer to that. And so if that's happening, are there any things that you're seeing popping out, let's say within influencer marketing, as an answer to those increasing costs? Because that's an interesting thing. It always happens. It's human nature, I think.
Like I said kind of earlier, we've been doing a lot more seeding campaigns, which is working with micro influencers more so. Basically, you just give out rewards within your game instead of paying them real money. Sometimes I ask for real money, but it's as low as like $50, $25, $50. So that's a lot better than 15,000. Granted, you obviously aren't going to see as big of a return, like as big of an organic increase from the macro influencers, but the idea is to work with a lot of micro influencers to kind of spread out the word to more people. That's something that we've been doing. Also, we've been having, you can now on Fiverr and freelance websites like that, you can have UGC created for you, and again, it's relatively cheap. So that's kind of something else that's kind of an option.
So if you were to say have the same budget, right, and you were to say do one big pump as opposed to spreading it out across a bunch of smaller influencers or doing seeding, how would you figure out which is better to do, right? Because you may be spending the same amount of money, but in terms of impact, I can see how maybe with a seeding campaign, it would distribute it across a wider potential group, and that might be a way to kind of hedge against a spike or a big campaign or a big influencer that just didn't work for whatever reason.
Okay, so there's a couple of pros and cons to all of this. So seeding one takes more time than
Yeah.
just a like paid campaign. It can take several months. You have to find these influencers, and then there's no contract involved when you're seeding because you're just giving them free loot and hopes that they post, right? So there's really no guarantee. It takes longer. Honestly, it takes more effort from who's ever running these campaigns. It takes more emails. It takes more, it just takes more logistics versus working with one single influencer and paying them money, and then the video can go up, in 2 weeks, if not a week. So,
You have to grind a
kind of
lot
look at your
harder. Yeah.
yeah, you have to look at your time limit. Like, let's say you're having a new update come out in a week. I don't know if seeding is going to work for you unless you already have that established base of micro influencers.
So for those big boosts, you might want to still do traditional influencer marketing, but in the background, always be maybe working seeding campaigns as sort of a sustained organic kind of angle.
Yeah. But when you're looking at those macro influencers, definitely just try to talk to the agency, make sure that the style fits this influencer, maybe even let them test the game to see if they enjoy it, to try to get the most bang for your buck.
Can you say something about that quickly? We did touch on it before, but how do you evaluate if the style makes sense, or how do you evaluate if it's going to click with their audience? How do you approach that question? Do you just watch a bunch of their videos and get a vibe, or is it more scientific?
It's mostly a vibe, honestly, and I would be lying if I if I didn't say I found an influencer and I thought the campaign was gonna, flourish and be amazing and do awesome things, and then it happens and it just their audience either has already downloaded the game, they already know about the game, so instead of like going to new audiences, I basically am just showing the game to people who have already played it. That has definitely happened. And then, I mean, sometimes I watch, these influencers and their past videos were great, and then maybe they were just having an off day that day, and so it was just not as good. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah,
It's
that's
definitely tough.
interesting though. That's interesting. That I mean, it's still kind of a little nebulous, right? It's a fuzzy science, not a hard science.
Right. There's a bunch of, I wouldn't call them agencies, but I guess like influencer marketing brands that they promise a certain amount of views, and then per that they basically give a CPI, whatever. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really tried working with any of them. I just think that that is more calculated and that is more scientific, as kind of like you were saying. And so basically, they just keep giving your game out until you reach that promised number of views. And I just feel like that would be really forced. And I mean, you can get 1 million views, but that doesn't mean you're going to get 1 million downloads.
If they guaranteed a million downloads, that would be a different story, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting challenge, I think, because views in the wrong place don't mean very much,
Right.
right? For anything. I want to focus a little bit more on influencers as we have been, if that's okay. You're calling them macro influencers. I don't know. Actually, can you tell me what the difference is exactly? How do you define them?
A macro influencers has millions of followers or
Okay.
subscribers or whatever. A micro might have like 10 to 50,000.
10 to 50.
Yeah, something under there. Um,
Okay. Okay.
but don't ever underestimate your micro influencers, especially in terms of Twitch, because Twitch is a lot different than a good streamer that has around 200 average views has a really close knit community.
Hmm.
And so I found that they will bring in more downloads because these people who are watching the streamer with 100 to 200 viewers like concurrent, they want to support them. They feel more passionate for this person, and they're listening to what they're saying versus someone who's watching like Tyler One, who has thousands of viewers and people are just spamming chat with nonsense.
It is an interesting dynamic, though. The smaller, in some sense, the more intimate the community. People feel like they're really connected to this person. They could actually send them a message and actually chat
Right.
with them in chat, rather than just having a huge streamer just read their name or read a donation or something like that, and it's not as maybe it's not as close. What about the different formats? Because you could have an influencer create a video and you could have them play a game on stream, and I'm sure that there are other things that you could have them do. There are a lot of variables, but how do you approach that? Playing the game on stream or making a video or other ways of talking about the game?
It really depends on the style of game and where your game is available. So Twitch works really well with Idle Slayer because it's free on Steam. It's super easy for these influencers to download, play it, upload it, all that good stuff. Games like Radio Stampede, it's a mobile only endless runner portrait style game. So short content, like TikTok, Reels, Shorts, all that kind of stuff tends to work better. The only problem with Shorts is it's not a ton of time. So, you can't really have that one big macro influencer for TikTok. You can, but it's not going to be as impactful as like a YouTuber. So if you're going to do TikTok, I would kind of say spread it out. Do seeding works really well with TikTok because you can have lots of little micro TikTokers.
So also then there is you want to be where they would play it, or on the device that they would play
Yeah.
it on, right? So
Yeah.
if it's Steam, then maybe Twitch, because they're watching on their
Yeah.
computers generally. Is that the case? Do people like to watch Twitch streamers on their phones?
I'm sure some people do, but I think most people watch it on like computers. Honestly, is both mobile and Steam. So the idea is to bring them into the Steam version, eventually have them download as mobile.
Right.
Because I do make it a point for the streamers to say that it's cross-platform, and so you can play anywhere. We definitely see when we're working with Twitch streamers, we definitely see a much bigger increase in the Steam version than we do on the mobile version. But interesting enough, YouTube, we actually see a bigger increase on mobile than we do on Steam.
Do you attribute that to YouTube's kind of recent focus on mobile, because they weren't always, and now now you can do vertical streaming, and Shorts is obviously getting a lot bigger, and they're focusing more on mobile than they used to?
Yeah, for sure. I just think that more people probably watch YouTube also on their phone than people watch Twitch on their phone.
Mm.
Like, I mean, that's that's a pretty normal thing, people watching YouTube on their phone. Twitch is just very PC oriented
Yeah.
versus YouTube, I think, also has a wider audience and a bigger age range, so you could have little kids versus parents, where Twitch is probably a really more specific, age limit and, probably more male oriented than YouTube.
Okay, so that's kind of where it has been going. Where do you see broadly it going in the next few years? I mean, do you think the costs will continue to go up and kind of drive out the budgets for macro influencers? What kind of things do you see kind of coming up?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that they will continue to increase at least for a little bit. Hopefully, eventually they stabilize. I mean, just like the housing market or whatever else. Eventually, I think it'll have to stabilize because eventually influencers will stop probably getting as much work. Granted, they will always be those big companies like Uber Eats and Grubhub and like the really big companies that will always pay for these influencers. So it kind of just sucks for like the little guy that's over here. But I guess that's just kind of the way the world works. In terms of upcoming platforms, that's really hard to say, honestly, because it's forever changing. Um, I do hope that Twitch itself will get better in terms of paying out their influencers, because Twitch can kind of, can I say fuck people over? Um, but you know, I think that maybe if these platforms paid out these influencers better, they would be less likely to want to take such a big campaign ad. If that makes any sense. Like if they're getting paid more from ads, then they wouldn't ask for so much in terms of doing a campaign. But
Right. They're just they're yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
There would be less
But
pressure on the amount that you would have to pay for an
right.
influencer marketing campaign if the compensation were a little different on the platform itself.
So it's pretty interesting working with some IPs. They do not like, and depending on the type of brand, they do not allow the influencer. Let's say it's a YouTube video, they do not allow them to run ads via, if you're running an ad campaign, like if you're running an influencer campaign. Um, Typically, like I don't really care. I'm like, make your money, So I think that could also be a bargaining chip if you are, looking to work with some influencers. Say, I will pay you less, but I will allow you to run ads on your video, Twitch, whatever. I guess that doesn't really work with short like TikTok, but they run ads.
They do. Yeah, shorts started I think in 2023 running
Hmm.
ads, I
Yeah,
believe. And TikTok, I don't know, but I don't know what's going on with TikTok, so
TikTok's all over the place.
who knows? Well, so I do have one other kind of bigger question, but I wonder if just for the sake of having it all together, could you just quickly walk through kind of ABCD step by step for what you would do if you were, let's keep it simple, approaching one influencer for a game like Idle Slayer, right? What is the process?
Look at the genre of game. Look at where it is available. So I'm gonna use Idle Slayer. It's available on Steam. So then I will Google other games that are similar to Idle Slayer. Let's say Cookie Clicker. I think Idle Heroes. Kind of just do some market research and see what kind of influencers are posting for these games. Now, of course, for certain games, you're going to have dedicated influencers who only post for that game. Obviously, don't reach out to them. They're probably not going to do it. And
Yeah.
that game is like directly competing with your game. So, like, that doesn't make sense. But find let's say, a YouTuber who does a broad style of games, right? But they have done some sort of idle clicker games if you're working with a game like Idle Slayer. Then go through them, watch some of their videos, look at some of their ads, see their recent views, kind of decide if that's someone you want to work with. Let's say yes, you think they'll be a great fit. On YouTube, it's really easy. If you go in their bio, they have their email address. You can simply click it, copy it, send them an email. Um, in terms of sending them an email, sometimes you don't want to seem like a cold email. You want to kind of seem special. So, put their name in it, put the kind of game, maybe put some free content in like the
You want them to know that you actually know who they are, right?
right, and
It's
maybe
not
say
just
something
a
about their
template
videos.
that you send to
Right,
50 people, even though it may be.
right,
You
yeah,
customize it a little
yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Customize it a little bit, right? I mean, even say something about their videos, or
Yeah.
maybe you said, "I saw your blah 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 video. I really liked it. I think it would be a good fit for Idol Slayer." Blah 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 blah. Um, if you have a direct budget in your mind and you want to pay them this amount of money, you can go ahead and put that in there. And then, or if you don't, and you kind of want to see what their bargaining chip is, you can basically ask for their rates.
What do
And
you
then
recommend?
go.
Do you have a recommendation?
Um, it depends on the size of the influencer because the really big macro influencers, they have their rates and they're not going to take anything
They're
less.
fixed. Yeah.
Right. But if they're a little bit smaller, you can kind of go ahead and say, like, I'll pay you X amount, but I will also give you X amount of in game rewards and I will allow you to run ads. Um, so, you can kind of go from
So
there.
part of that process is you building out a kind of bundle or package of things that you can
Yeah.
offer, and that should be appealing to them. And you have to know what's appealing to them, that they can still run ads, right? That they
Right.
also get benefits if they like the game, in-game benefits as well.
I would always try to give in-game rewards, especially. I mean, okay, let's say your game isn't free and it's on Steam. Obviously, give them a Steam key and maybe give them some Steam keys to give out to their viewers. They love that kind of stuff. You could also, even if you have an affiliate program integrated into your game, that's another great option. So, if you say, hey, you can give out this code and make 15% off of IAP purchases or downloads or whatever, that's another great option. And then you can also pay them like a less overhead. Um, so it's kind of basically figuring out your bundle and then how much you can or don't have to pay, I guess.
Right.
Um,
Seeing if you
yeah.
can take some of the money value and kind of put that into in-game value, which
Right. I mean,
obviously
that's
costs
basically
you
the
less
concept
or
of
nothing.
seeding. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, let's say say yes, they like the in-game rewards, money, blah, 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 blah. You send them a brief. Depending on if you are really strict and you want a certain amount of things said and done, then that's fine. But if you want to just be like, hey, play the game, enjoy it, say whatever you want, that's fine too. Depending on the game and kind of, I guess, your company and what you want to accomplish and
What do you favor?
I mean, I favor to let them just play. It's a lot less stressful, and I think they have a lot more fun. But a lot of brands are really strict on what can be said and what can be shown. It just depends. And if you are doing some sort of IP collaboration, it can be more strict. Then they can only show what's in the game versus like I don't know, something on the internet. Because yeah, so it depends on what you're running the campaign for and your company and your brand. But if you have a loose brand, yeah, just let them play. Just go for it.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I think good kind of playbook for if someone hadn't done it, right? Just the steps to follow. Kind of zooming out, big picture for marketing activities, right? For a game. Um, how does it? This is kind of a difficult question, but how does it all fit together as a strategy, right? You're thinking of paid UA, you're thinking of social media, you're thinking of influencer marketing, maybe some macro, some micro. You're trying to fit it all together. You don't have to give a very specific answer here, obviously. But as someone who's thinking about this, how do you think about it? How do you approach all of these pieces, putting them together into a comprehensive marketing strategy?
right. Well, definitely don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't do just UA, just influencer marketing, just whatever. Another part that I think you asked earlier, kind of what the future might be, I think more old school marketing might come more into play.
Newspapers.
Um, um, maybe, yeah, newspapers, or even like, billboards or flyers or, like little QR codes on a restaurant menu, kind of more non UA internet marketing.
Interesting. Have
I
you seen
think
any any?
I've seen a couple, and I've kind of mentioned it. It's just that's really hard because it's so specific on geolocation.
Right.
So but hey, if you're able to partner with a restaurant and you get 15% off for downloading a video, like a mobile game, then like I'd probably do it. If I'm sitting there
Yeah.
at a restaurant,
Yeah, I
at a
think that's a
bar.
good point. So don't put all your eggs in one basket, and think outside the box. Don't
Yeah.
just assume that, oh, I must do UA ad campaigns and influence. You should really be creative and think, what is really going to help me grow my game.
Right.
And if you do that, you might realize, oh, actually, this restaurant gets a lot of young people, and they might actually
Right.
scan a QR code.
Right, exactly. Always try new things because you don't want to don't want to copy. I think we talked about that in one of our podcasts. Don't be the army of copiers. Try new things, see what's out there. Maybe you'll be the first, and it'll work really well for you. I don't have that answer for you, but maybe someone does. That would be
The
great. Let me know.
first to do a telemarketing campaign,
For a mobile
where
game,
we call
right?
people and say, "Are you interested in playing this game?"
Are you interested in playing Rodeo Stampede?
Yeah, cold calls.
Um,
That's a great
right.
that'll work.
Yeah.
All right, this has been really great. I think there are a lot of takeaways here, and as usual, a lot of insights and helpful information. Anything else that you think people should have front of mind as they think about their marketing strategies?
Just definitely be aware of the ever changing market. So what's working today is not going to work tomorrow. But also don't let it get you down. It's tough
Yeah,
out there. I know there's a lot of decisions to always be made, and you know, just keep swimming, and eventually you'll find something that works.
that's a great message. Well, thanks, Sandy. I appreciate it. As always, thank you very
Of
much.
course.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for watching. If you did, you may enjoy Behind the Game podcast, hosted by Sandy. So check that out on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. So check out the podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.